Where do we walk from here? Blinded by events, we search for direction. Lead us.
We just had to learn to cut expenditure, and we had to learn to produce more and sell more than we buy. And these were lessons I was trying to teach and to tell the country about. There are certain basic things that ought to be taught in a democratic society. Normal courtesy, concern for one another, integrity and honesty, helping oneself, being self-reliant. And these were the lessons we're teaching. All over the country, people are building roads, building schools, building community centers, helping themselves. We were trying to prove that democracy could work in Africa. I know that what we're trying to do, the fact that we were a democratic country allowing opposition, free speech and so on, was a reproach to some people who are wringing their hands with joy. But I'm certain that Ghana will again establish a democratic form of government, and we will learn the hard lessons.
Lead, kindly light. We follow your trail. We follow you, Papa.
He is relevant today, and he will continue to be relevant. There are many of the things he did which are standing in his name and which will continue to represent the great things he did for this country. Brong Ahafo region. Boreholes were provided at Jinejine, Sampa, Adamsu, Wenchi, Badu, and Agyekum. Electricity was also supplied to several towns and villages to promote establishment of cottage industries. Educational projects include classroom blocks for primary, middle, and secondary schools at Yeji, Prime, Kwame Danso, Drobo, Sunyai, Bechem, Diankwanta, and Mem, as well as dormitory blocks for the Brekum and Atebubu training colleges. Among the major roles tiled are the Wenchi Techiman, Go Sukukum Sankore, Atebubu Kwame Danso, and many others. The PP government also tackled the construction of the Sunyai Airport. Central Region. The Progress Party government constructed over 1,661 miles of roads in this region within 2 years. Many health facilities, including hospitals, were built. Among them was the health posts and the health center at Otuam. Health centers were also built at Bodwiase, Twifupraso, Besiasen, and Odoben. Agriculturally, a pilot maize storage scheme was implemented at Agona Suedro, oil palm nursery at Enyan Denchra, and citrus nursery at Fosu. Eastern Region. The construction of a ministerial block, bungalows, rest houses, junior staff quarters, and administrative office. Health posts were constructed at Abrim and Donkokrum, as well as the construction of health centers at Apidja, Asuboi. Electricity was also supplied to many communities, including Tafo, Bunso, Kede, Suhum, and Sumanya. Within the first 2 years of the Progress Party regime, 29 communities in the Eastern region were supplied pipe-borne water. Over 54,000 acres of existing cocoa were replanted, while some 36,000 acres of undeveloped land were planted. Greater Accra region. Prof. Busia's administration was at the helm of the construction of the Kaneshi Market Complex, which was covered at the request of Prof's wife to protect the women sellers from the sun. A modern clinic was built at Pram Pram. Also, health centers were constructed at Temamahiam, Dodoa, and Obuom. Several schools were constructed across the region in communities such as Pong, Apollonia, Bawaleshi, Agyekuma, Pram Pram, Oyibi, Afienya, and Media, Northern Region. Health facilities were constructed in many communities, including Saboba, Pasempe, Tuna, Bompurugu, Gambaga, Daboya, and Gushegu. A nursing school and maintenance workshop was also built at Tamale. By the time the government left office, the following communities in the northern region had been supplied with water: Upper Region. The construction of the Lora Secondary School is one of the many achievements for which Prof's administration is remembered in the Upper Region. Several dams were constructed to boost production of rice in the area. Rest houses, recreational and community centers, social and welfare clinics, office blocks, staff quarters, and bungalows and places of convenience were provided at Bolgatanga and many other places. Volta Region. Construction of Hu Denu Road, Pando Abutuasi, Golokpati, Hohoi roads. To boost agriculture, Prof's government established a farm mechanization school at Ohawu, office building and fumigation chamber at Aflau, stalls for irrigation division at Hohoi. Additionally, dams were built at Ave, Afiadenigba, Avega and Agotime, Western Region. Among the roads constructed were the Driasi Krobo at Agyekum, Boinsu Asem Krum Kwanta. Water supply was carried out vigorously by way of pipe-borne water to many communities as well as the digging of many wells. The rural electrification project also took place in the region with power supply going to Yoso, Hafasini and Enchi. Clinics, hospitals, health centers and other health facilities were constructed. Transportation across rivers in the region was also improved by the construction of new bridges and the provision of pontoon services.
This is the vision that I know Prof was trying to. Anybody who reads his work, anybody who was close to him, and anybody who can see, in fact, even his political manifesto or what he did in the first 2.5 years, this was what Prof was trying to put across. So only one would wish that we would have another leader like him. One would wish. Who's got the inner strength to take bold decisions.
When he was overthrown, I went to London, Oxford. I spoke to him and I said, Papa, try to bring in army so that we fight these people. If you are able to fight them, nobody can continue, making coups again. But he said no. He didn't like bloodshed. He didn't like people dying.
I said, I didn't think a Champong was a fit person to rule Ghana. And in any case, nobody invited the soldiers, so they had to go back for shooting my mouth at the wrong time. I got jailed, sentenced to 8 years in prison.
At the opening of the court that day, all the lawyers appeared, and I saw the QC. In fact, he mentioned his name, and then it was Ufusuama who told me that Prof had sent a QC from Britain to come and defend us.
I had been tried for subversion, and I had the distinction of having been tried on a law that was written 3 weeks after my arrest.
While I was in detention, apparently an attempted coup occurred which was foiled by Champong's government, and in the aftermath of it, my brother was arrested by the soldiers and murdered in cold blood. He was tortured in the most bestial fashion. I mean, it's as my sister took photographs of his body, and I was shown them after I'd come out of prison. It's horrible. How any group of human beings could treat another human being like that, I cannot understand.
We worked hard to get people supported when they were able to leave the country. Dr. Busia made sure that they were all secure there.
Of course, I knew what had happened to him about his eyes.
Being as human as he is, he said, Mama, I should go and shop for me. So we all went out, and when we were coming, we saw all the houses in Sand Lake. with lights, but ours was stuck. Darkness, because we weren't there to put on the light. Brother was in darkness and he didn't even know. It was a very bad experience.
He had been feeling a kind of pain in his chest, and it was strange because it didn't sort of hurt, but it was thud and it was painful, like something squeezing him.
So I helped him back into bed and called the doctor.
And Naa phoned me and said, "Get your Bible. Papa was in hospital." So I left London by train and went to Ratcliffe Infirmary at Oxford. Dr. Busia had had a heart attack.
I got a call from my family in Standlake that my father was in hospital and not very well. I remember rushing on a train to Oxford, to the Ratcliffe Hospital, and when I walked in, to my very happy surprise, he was really well. He seemed very, very well. And what I remember is that he was very excited and eating strawberry ice cream. And that stuck in my head because he never ate ice cream.
I remember challenging the doctor and saying, why are you letting a diabetic eat ice cream?
They said that I really shouldn't worry, that Papa had recovered, that he was going to come back home on Tuesday.
Midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, the phone went. I didn't hear it. Mama took it and came to wake me. And they were calling to say he'd taken a turn for the worse and we should come. They said he was unconscious or semi-conscious or something. He had been for a long time, but then suddenly he said very clearly, clear as a bell, "Mama, muwoho." And he used the you plural, you know, and Mama said, "Ay, Papa, yenina waha." And those were his last words. "Mama, are you there?" And I was holding his hand. And you know, they had those terrible monitors that... And I remember the nurse switching off the monitor so we wouldn't have to hear the beep of the flat line and see the flat line, because it was clear that his heart was stopping. So we were all there when he just stopped breathing.
And that was the end.
But then, of course, we had to get a course.
It delayed me. By the time I was able to send the message across, I wanted even to travel to Kufuor, but because I couldn't get a Kufuor, I then went on to Oxford. Got out of the train, got into a taxi to the Ratcliffe Infirmary. Dr. Busia had died 10 minutes before. Armbonsa was in London. Kofi Busia, Dr. Busia's eldest son, and Mr. Atifa were at the hospital waiting for me. So I made them leave and I paid my respects. I then phoned Aram Bonza, and my direct words was, "I'm finished."
It was arranged that his secretary Mike would pick me up from London Airport and bring me to Oxford. So I was just packing my things, and it's strange, of all places where I was staying in Kofi Annan's flat on the island in the East River in New York. So he was at work in the UN, of course. And I was just packing my things to go and check in the airport when Mike rang and said that the woman had died.
Akoso just walked in, didn't say anything to anybody.
And I remember seeing my mother, who never cried. I remember she was very low down, sitting like this. And all I remember is just, I don't remember anybody else in the room. I remember just going to my mother and burying my head.
And Mama cradled her and she said not a word because I didn't say a thing.
It gives him much pain.
What has happened to my brother? Is he dead? Just if you ask them, they will tell you. If you haven't heard he was sick or anything serious, but all I said, was he dead? Then they said, nobody could answer, and that was what I saw. I collapsed.
I just held it. I said, "What's the thing?" And I passed out.
Don't leak out the news to anyone.
There was going to be, that's what they told me, an announcement in Britain and in Ghana at the same time. So we should wait for the official announcement from the Ghana High Commission and from the Ghana government in Ghana. Until then, nobody is to go and spread the news.
Government wanted to bring the body, but the CPP people said no. Or there are people who said they shouldn't bring my brother because he was a wanted person.
Today they will tell you one program, the next day another program.
They met more than 3 or 4 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks. They meet today, take decision, and then the next day the decision is turned down. No, yes, no.
The way things are delaying, I've decided to put myself on this committee. What do you want to do with my brother's body?
I was mad. I said, look, if you are not prepared to bring my brother's body here, or Foboyin is prepared, I'll send the body there, bury him there. Or if in Paris, I'll get people from Paris to come and, I don't know anybody there, come and take my brother's body, and then he'll be buried outside.
When things settle, the dust settle, we'll exhume the body and bring it to Ghana. I'm just waiting to hear from you.
He said they have now decided to bring the body here, so they should tell me to cool down.
And one thing, the body is not coming home until and unless you've removed the tag on his head. Because you said Busia was a wanted man, alive or dead. So not until that one has been published, nobody should tell me they are bringing my brother's body home. So I insisted that thing should be done. And they did it, and they said we shouldn't tell anybody. I came and I asked Vitosu to hold a press conference. So Vitosu held a press conference to say that a close, reliable member of the family had told them that the tag on Busia's head had been removed.
It tickles me. Can you imagine? Putting a price on a man like that. I couldn't believe it. Anyway, we had to bring him home.
That was what was occupying his mind that last weekend, and he was so happy about the idea of going home.
I don't know whether premonition or he just wanted to come home. Because I remember we went out and bought him tropical clothes.
This whole wardrobe of clothes.
He was getting ready to come home, not knowing he was coming home spiritually.
Dr. Kufuor Busia was called back by the good Lord on 28th August 1978.
When we landed in Accra, it was as the plane was landing, like just seeing a sea of people who were waiting for this plane to land. Just a sea of people.
Tears in many eyes, distraction in many aspects, broken voices, all for Busia. A brother, a husband, a father, a leader, a countryman, nay, a statesman. Pay homage to him, for he was a man who defended to the death the right of every man to say what they may in their common membership of society.
We had to have a special coffin made with the glass that was sealed so that the casket could be opened, but the body was vacuum sealed, otherwise we couldn't have an open casket funeral. And then I remember Mama sitting, making the blouse. She said she'd always made Papa's blouses that he wore under his kente. At the four corners there was the Air Force, the Navy, the police and the armed services, one at each corner. And they were standing guard, and they changed guard with military position, I think was every 15 minutes. The crowds.
State House couldn't contain the crowd. It was so huge.
And what struck me most was how many young people and the amount of students. And we sat there as people poured through. I mean, they were preventing people and letting them in their hundreds and making them speed up just to try to get everybody through who wanted to just come and look at his body.
Professor Prof. Busia's mortal remains were carried from Accra to Sunyani.
I remember the pilot flew down, dropped the plane, so we hovered low over the city. We couldn't take the most obvious short road from Sunyani to Wenchi because we had to cross the Ayasu where Papa Ohene would be waiting, because Papa Ohene had left Wenchi to come to the river because it marks the boundary of Wenchi traditional area. So when we arrived in Sunyani, we had to take the old road and we reached the Ayasu. So, you know, the truck didn't just drive. We actually stopped for a ceremony and the libation was poured. After Papa Ohene had received it, it was carried back and put back in the army truck.
We had to stop at every village to pour a libation or to greet the people and so on. The welcome was simply fantastic.
We passed villages where you saw chiefs in state. I mean, in full mourning, in state. All their people around them just sitting by the roadside, waiting for Papa's funeral cortege to pass. And then in village after village and town after town, as soon as we passed, they picked up their stools and umbrellas, and then some got into cars and some just started walking. That whole week, people arrived who had just walked from all over Ashanti and Brong Ahafo. They just walked. They didn't care if the funerals were officially over, nothing. They just walked. They kept coming. They kept coming. They kept coming. I've never seen anything like it.
When we got to Wenchi, and the people in Kumasi and all through had heard that this body is not coming there and not being permitted to stop, I remember in Wenchi, after hours, just hearing this sound. I mean, at first it was like a distant rumble, and then we just heard this sound approaching, and we found out that taxi drivers, lorry drivers, trotro drivers, coach drivers, people had volunteered to drive people for free, just for a chance to come and see the Prof's body and mourn his passing. In private vehicles, public vehicles, people were giving whoever wanted a ride, and you heard this thunderous noise approaching Wenchi, as in the thousands people came to mourn.
The crowds, they were pressing because we laid Pa's body in the new house. next to our old house.
There were so many people, even the gates were broken down with people. The door was pushed down with people as people came to mourn. And as people were weeping over the coffin, over and over again, people were thanking Papa for their schooling, thanking Papa for having sent them to college, thanking Papa for having sent them to university. I mean, really tens and tens and tens of people who came up and as they shook our hands said, "Your father sent me through college. Because of your father, my schooling was paid." People that we didn't even know Papa had been doing this for.
He was an exceptional human being, an outstanding example of universal man. His absolute integrity, his modesty, and the extreme simplicity of his family and domestic life in Ghana and Oxford will always be remembered. His life is now woven into the texture of African history, and no one can write about the courage of independence after the long period of colonial rule, or the early years of the political development of Ghana, without referring to the significant contribution of Kofi Busia to the building of a new nation. He was guided in his public life by the noble and enduring ideal of a free country under the rule of law, with a democratic parliament and a framework of civil liberties. He pioneered this ideal unremittingly and with great personal courage. I often think his smile was the key to his character, for it lit up his whole face and irradiated the natural goodness, the kindness of heart that lay behind it. It often evolved into a peal of noisy laughter.
Transfiguring smile. Then a burst of laughter. Busia.
I remember Professor David Mowbray Baum, the first Vice-Chancellor of the University of Ghana, wrote this moving tribute that in fact the family asked me to read at the service.
Words from Naa Morkor Busia, one of Dr. Busia's 4 surviving children.
To Dr. Busia, therefore, and to others like him, must go much of the real credit for the university's success. Many men might have had their heads turned by such fame, but Dr. Busia remained always modest, thoughtful, considerate of others, and completely without conceit. Rarely have high intelligence and great love been so combined in one person as they were in Kofi Busia.
Then more words of respect and admiration, and this time by Mr. J.H. Mensah, who was Minister of Finance in Busia's Progress Party government.
He valued so much the trust and affection of the millions of simple Ghanaians to whose freedom and welfare he had dedicated all his life.
The death of Dr. Kofi Busia removes one of the most remarkable figures from the African political scene.
The wise person is the visionary, one who does not just live for the day, but lives beyond it, one who plans for the morrow. Professor Busia was wise in this sense. He was a visionary. He said, and I quote, "There are times when it is good to give a lesson that goes beyond the immediate understanding and vision of your students. That is how we stretch their hearts and imagination. The seed sown may lie for years, but someday it may burst out with the force and inspiration and exhilaration of a newly discovered truth." Unquote.
The end of a great man.
Why did the gods not let you stay longer with us?
He was years ahead of his time. That's the problem. Years ahead of his time. So we hope that the peace and democracy which Dr. Busia entrenched in this country will be maintained for us long as possible, if for no other reason but for the best interests of this country.
His aim in life was to leave a name, and he has left that name, which nobody can buy. That's all.
I love him, and the advice that he gave me has helped me all the way along. So I thank him very much.
I wouldn't have wanted anyone else to be my father. My memories of my father are great happiness and joy. He was kind to me. He did his best to help me develop as a human being.
So if I say he has made me what I am today, it was through his own help and assistance.
With regards to the family, we are empty without him. So if he were alive now, we would have been able to suck some of his wisdom, and he will still be our advisor, our father, and everything.
I only love my country, that's all. I've planted my cocoa in my head. I can always eat. My pen is there, but I want to serve my nation. I want to help them. That's why I'm here. I'm not here for anything.
Me, he was always a great man, without pretenses, but full of depth and exceptionally endowed with wisdom. Almost like a seer.
I'm proud of my father for the principles with which he upheld. I'm proud of my father because he was a prayerful man.
Men like Busia can't die. They won't die. And he's not dead. If Busia were dead, all of us would not have been here today. He lives in our hearts. If there's any doubting Thomas here who thinks Busia is dead, he should go and read Africa in Search of Democracy. As democracy reverberates on this continent like a thunderstorm, let the word go forth to all here assembled that the very document that sustains our democratic strength, which defines our democratic values, are nothing but the ideas and ideals which Busia stood for. The legacy of Busia to Ghana's democracy is the Constitution itself.
Perhaps when we think about the legacy of Kofi, we should not only think about the things we can see or the words that he left, but what he did in terms of discovering those who can also make a contribution in his absence to Ghana.
If somebody can inspire us, that is the beautiful thing in life. So what I would say is that anybody here can be the inspiration for the next generation.
His leadership in Ghana was morally and politically compelling, and his government was a model. By all standards, it was a model, respected all over the world.
That was the only regime and period in the history of this country, until the Kufuor regime, that there had not been any political detainees or prisoners.
As soon as he starts to talk, everybody kind of is listening to him.
Even the so-called big men like Kwame Nkrumah, Godima, Kodjobosio, they all sit quiet. If you drop a pin, cling, everybody will hear, because they all want to hear what he has. He speaks wisdom.
If you look at the history of studies about Africa in the entire world, you would see that invariably Kofi Busia was somewhere when the seed was being sown.
Nobility of thought, his adaptability of ideas, his generosity of nature, his tenacity of purpose, his transparent honesty. All these were qualities which stood him in good stead. not only when he was in power, but also before and after. I think he was a great man.
He never forgot people who had worked with him. He never did. He was always mindful of those with whom he had struggled.
Even when he was in London, he was thinking of his driver in Ghana. He would ask me, how is my driver keeping? How is he surviving? And so on. And this is typical.
Professor Busia, I don't think I'll have any other master than him anymore on this earth, because he treated me as his own child. Even if he is dead, he's my master.
He never ordered me to do anything. It was always a very polite request.
Daddy, thank you very much for picking me to work with you. I have learned so much. I'm a better person than I would have been, I'm sure.
He was a very wise man, and he was prophetic, really prophetic.
Papa is the one person I have seen who comes closest to what I think Christ wanted us to be.
Ghana is the poorer without Prof. Ghana is indeed the poorer without Prof. He's left a vacuum, which in my view would be very difficult to fill.
If we were alive, the country would have been different. Country would be different because the vision and the plans he had for this country were noble.
It will be really difficult to get a man like Prof to rule as Agyekum.
Prof, your disciples whom you left in this country are doing their very best to ensure that you will not have toiled in vain.
Papa, on the 25th anniversary of your passing, 15,000 people gather in Wenchi to pay homage to the legacy of your name.
In 1969, Busia had the conviction and the view to put together a generation of young leaders in the front line of our political establishment. The likes of Dr. Kwame Safo-Edu 36, Minister of Agriculture, Dr. Selby, John Soforiata, Jato Kalio, Abayi Fakabo, BK Adama, J.H. Mensah. The youngest of the lot, Mr. Kufuor, then Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, at barely 30 years, is today, 40 years down the line, many years after the death of Busia, the president of our country. As Mr. Kufuor is about to bow out, and for me, he is the symbol of the generation Busia put together, it is time for you to revisit the vision of Professor Busia.
Nana Adodankwa Kufuor, the Dankwa Busia tradition continues as a united front determined to realize its historic mission, building in our country a free and open society in which every individual has the opportunity to make of himself or herself what he can.
Ghana is at peace.
What I have known of Dr. Busia is having a desire for seeing those less fortunate have the opportunity of moving forward, helping to fulfill the essence of the legacy that he has left behind.
As we celebrate the life of this great son of Wenchi today, we must remember this man was a man of peace. He was a royal and yet a servant of the people.
And I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea. And I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride and adorned for her husband. And I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and God himself shall be with them. and be their God.
Papa, we, your extended children, Abna, Efia, Akosia, Equia, Effie, Frema, Jesse, Kofi, Kwesi, Nyama, Yao, salute you. As your child, grandfathered by the King of Kings, I have now claimed the Son of the living God as my own. I know that following your footsteps will lead me to where you are in spirit and in truth. As with David, Solomon, Paul, I am inspired by your gifts, encouraged by your flaws. Great persons are those who give their all, not because of their perfect selves, but despite their imperfections, passionately living for the betterment of humanity. Thank you, Papa. Your life, your vision, your legacy lives on.
Osaberme, why